is we've seen how clients actually use their money in retirement. We've seen what pitfalls they face. We've seen what goes well. We've seen what doesn't. We've seen what helps build a secure foundation. We've seen what has left people up at night, concerned. And over the years, what we started to realize is very, very simple. If you picture your retirement as this grand structure, it's being held up by 5 key pillars. And each one of these pillars plays an integral role in the structural stability of that retirement. Those 5 pillars are income planning, investment planning, tax planning, healthcare planning, and estate or legacy planning. And what we've learned over the years, talking to thousands of families, is if one of those structures, one of those pillars is missing, or if it's cracked, or if it's broken, or what's actually the more common thing that we see, if one of those pillars is holding up more weight than it was designed to withstand, it jeopardizes the structural integrity of the entire structure. And so if we're looking at a retirement and we see that maybe income is not consistently built, that creates a structural problem. If we see that investments are doing great, we're making money hand over fist, we're averaging 12%, but we don't have a proactive tax strategy to reduce the implications of the taxes we're gonna owe on those dollars over time, that strategy becomes less efficient, which could impact how much money we have for future medical or healthcare needs or future income needs. The reality is very simple. All 5 pieces flow together. How much we grow our investments impacts how much income we have. How much income we have impacts how much in taxes we pay. How much in taxes we pay could impact our Medicare costs or our overall dollars in our pocket to cover medical issues, which when we're all done with our money could impact what's left over from a legacy perspective. They're all related. And if one of them is missing, if one of them is broken, if one of them is cracked, the entire structure stands to have risk that's not necessary. The beauty of our Retire Forward process, a process that we have refined and developed over 16 years helping families here in Utah, is we've seen, hey, this is an area that needs to be addressed. Hey, this is an area that just can't afford to be left alone. And that's what's created this process, is years and years of just talking to families, helping them out, and taking theoretical application and seeing what it looks like in the real world. Let me share some examples with you of the difference between what I would call a structural concern and a cosmetic concern. Because one of the things that we've seen over the years is those are 2 vastly different conversations. And it's common when a client who's been referred to us comes into the meeting with our team of advisors and they bring up things that we'd call cosmetic concerns while there are structural issues still at hand. I'll share a true story with you guys. I sat down with a family, this was months ago, they were referred to us, extremely sweet couple. The husband had a pension that he had already turned on, and upon his death, that pension went away. It's what's referred to as a single life pension. It pays him for as long as he is still with us. But when he's gone, so is the pension, which left his spouse in a really precarious situation from an income perspective, because they were going to lose over 50% of their income if he were to pass. Beyond that, if he passes before her, she would lose her Social Security and only have his, because a surviving spouse keeps the greater of the 2. So when we add in the pension and the Social Security, we were looking at close to a 70% drop in income for the spouse if the husband was to pass first. To us at Momentum Wealth, that is a structural issue. We go to the 5 pillars, and what we see is when it comes to income planning, there is a structural issue that is going to jeopardize the confidence, the clarity, and the success of the surviving spouse in the future. We tried our best to talk to the client about this concern because from our perspective, after years of experience, it was crystal clear that was concern number 1. However, this potential client who was referred to us wanted to have a conversation about his portfolio compared to ours. What investments would we recommend inside of our stock portfolio compared to the mutual funds and ETFs and stocks that he was using? And we tried to be respectful and be polite and steer the conversation back to the structural issue, not the cosmetic issue. And unfortunately, he just wasn't really interested, which I respect. It's his money, it's his decision, it's their family. But that's a challenging thing as a fiduciary firm who takes what they do very, very seriously, to know that there is a challenge that this couple could face that could put one of them in a position of literally being destitute in the future, and then being so hyper-focused on the cosmetic concern of which stock should I buy, which mutual fund should I own, with the concept or theory of, well, if I pick the right stocks, I pick the right mutual funds, my portfolio should grow large enough that that will solve the income gap my surviving spouse may have if I precede her in death. Here's what I can tell you with boldness and certainty. Structural issues don't go away unless you fix them. If you're gonna go out and buy a home, let's change the concept for a second, okay? If you're gonna buy a home, one of the first things you do is you get an inspection on the home. You have someone, neutral third party, they're not paid for by the buyer, they're not paid for by the seller, so to speak. I mean, the buyer pays them, the seller pays them, but they're not working for either one, right? They are a neutral third party whose only responsibility is to look for issues inside the home and build out a report. And the report shows what's cosmetically concerning and what is structurally concerning. So that home inspector, they go through, they check water, faucets, they check if there are leaks, they check if there are termites, if there's mold, the electrical outlets, everything else. And maybe the report comes back and says, hey, the paint is chipped on a number of walls and there's some baseboards that need to get fixed up. I think we can agree those are called cosmetic issues. But if the report comes back and says, hey, the entire basement is lined with black mold, that is a structural problem. And regardless of how recently the home had a facelift, in the sense of a fresh coat of paint, new baseboards, if it was cosmetically perfect, but there was mold in every room in the basement, that is a structural concern, and I would be willing to bet that most buyers would not move forward with that purchase. Because the structural issues are large enough that they outweigh the benefits or the beauty of the cosmetic outward appearance. And that is exactly what our Retire Forward process was designed to cure. We take clients through a readiness assessment that helps them understand how ready are they to retire in each one of those 5 pillars. And we can look at their situation, run the reports, and say, based on the assessment, we are ready to retire when it comes to investments. We're ready to retire with healthcare and legacy, but there are structural concerns as it pertains to, let's say, income or taxes, for example. We want to understand, just like a home inspection report tells the buyer that they can buy the home and enter it with confidence, our Retire Readiness Assessment helps pre-retirees and existing retirees know the level of confidence they should have on how well their plan will continue to work for them, whether they live 5 more years, 10 more years, or 15 years. But just like that wonderful couple that I had the opportunity to sit down with, we want to understand, are we paying too much attention to the cosmetic issues and ignoring the structural ones? Or are we paying attention to the structural ones that maybe are actually quite sound? And what we don't want to do is enter retirement with confusion and uncertainty. We hear that all the time from families we meet with, where they say, hey, I want to have a plan to know I'm okay. I don't want to just hope I'm going to be okay. That is exactly what our Retire Forward process is designed to do. And that's what our Retire Forward Readiness Assessment gives that person. A written financial plan with a checklist that says, here are the areas we're in good shape. Here are the areas we need to address. Here are the areas that you might want to pay attention to. And here's what your plan of action should be. When you have that, again, picture yourself as a buyer of a new property. If you receive that inspection report and that inspector went, hey, you're good here, 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 but there's this one tiny issue you can take care of. You buy that house with more confidence. You move in with more confidence, knowing that you've checked before you made a decision to ensure that it was everything you ever wanted it to be. And it's the exact same concept when it comes to retirement. So let's make sure all 5 pillars are taken care of. Let's make sure all 5 pillars, taxes, income, investments, healthcare, and estate or legacy, are dialed in, and we have a true 5 of 5 plan. Guys, if we have one of those five, if all we have is an investment portfolio, or all we have is an income with no other conversation about taxes or all the other piece of the puzzle, we have an incomplete plan. We have an inspection report on a home and there are 5 pages missing. And the reality is this: if we didn't have those 5 pages, we wouldn't buy the house, because we want to be 100% certain that all the areas were checked, were accounted for, and were in good order. And those 5 pillars work together. They are crucial to have as a true, complete financial plan. And that's exactly what our Retire Forward process and our Retire Forward Readiness Assessment is designed to do. It gives clients the confidence they deserve to enjoy the retirement that they've earned, knowing each one of these 5 pillars is accounted for, planned for, and properly positioned. If you don't have 100% certainty that each of your 5 pillars has been planned for, if you don't have 100% certainty that you even have all 5 pillars, I encourage you, come and sit down with our team of advisors. Let's review what you have, and let's put together an action plan. If there are things missing, how do we solve that problem? If there are things that maybe are structurally concerned, how do we solve that problem? And then once we know the structure and the foundation is solid, let's move on to the cosmetic issues to optimize things in the best way possible. But let's make sure that we're paying attention to the true pieces of a financial plan that give you the confidence and clarity you deserve.